Good morning. Welcome back. Time for the good, bad, the ugly, and first up, the good. Don't you love it? That's Private First Class Derek Gilbert making a surprise visit to his sister's high school after being stationed for a year in South Korea. Sister Kimberly caught off guard in her junior ROTC class. She's planning to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, South Korea, a nervous place to be right now. And next, the bad. Duck and cover a swarm of more than 20 bats flying through a Texas Walmart. Gross. Swooping in between shoppers in the grocery section. Walmart's saying they're aware of the situation and they're working to get rid of these intruders. Let's hope so.
Terrible. All right, finally, the ugly. A teacher arrested for asking about her boss's raise.
What are you doing? Don't. Can you explain? Are you kidding me?
Stop resisting.
I am not. You just pushed me.
Geez, this was at a Louisiana school board meeting after she asked about the superintendent's $30,000 raise.
Is it against policy to stand? Sir, do not.
Well, we know that she's not going to face any charges. Wow.
Yikes, yeah, okay. All right, the Fox and Friends starts now. See you later.
You're not so far away from comprehensive immigration reform.
There are some things that you're proposing that are going to be very controversial.
But you're going to negotiate those things. You're going to sit down. You're going to say, listen, we can't agree here. We'll give you half of that.
Trump is conducting the meeting, and he's asking these Democrats, tell me what you want, right in front of the press.
It was unprecedented. I don't think that's ever happened before.
Breaking overnight, a lifeline for dreamers. A federal judge blocking President Trump's plan to roll back the Obama-era program.
Former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon has stepped down from Breitbart News Network, a stunning fall from political grace.
President Trump and his legal team striking back at what his allies call that dirty dossier that was unverified.
It's a legitimate defamation lawsuit, a false statement, and clearly the dossier is false.
First Lady sharing this photo on Instagram of her standing with dozens of police officers,
showing her appreciation to the men and women in blue to honor Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
You know, I went to FGL House in Nashville. That is Florida Georgia Line, and it might be one of the finest establishments in the history of restaurants.
FGL House, that's a restaurant.
Florida Georgia
Line? Yeah, it goes 4 floors or 3 floors, and each floor has a different theme going, and it's nonstop screens. Below, for me, it's dance, which is up top, very country, a lot of sports. In the middle is a great restaurant. If you are in Nashville, you have to go.
Do they have live music on each floor, like some of those bars do?
Not in the beginning, but yeah, by the time I was leaving at 10 o'clock, because I had to get up in 4 days.
4 hours?
4 days actually. It was Friday. Because I just can't stay out late, I don't know what it is anymore. So they started getting the band start rolling.
So since it's Florida Georgia Line, is 1 floor Florida, 1 floor Georgia?
No, it would have been a good theme. It was like very 80s music below, a lot of velvet ropes and dancing.
Oh, those were the days.
Tight pants.
So the glasses today?
Yeah, you know what?
right.
I got something in my eye yesterday and
Really?
can't put in the contact. So this is the Steve you
I like them.
I like
think they look
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
You
look even smarter
today. I look smarter?
Yeah, even smarter.
I'm going to start wearing these. Anyway, thanks for joining us on this very busy Wednesday. And we start right now with the Fox News alert. Breaking overnight, a federal judge in San Francisco has blocked the Trump administration from rolling back the Dreamers, the DACA Act.
The Obama-era program, it shields more than 800,000 people from being deported.
So let me see. Does that remove the pressure of getting a deal done? Griff Jenkins live in Washington. Griff, the DOJ is just now firing back, we understand.
That's right, guys. Good morning. The DOJ responding to that judge's ruling last night, blocking the administration's rollback on DACA in March. In a statement to Fox News, the DOJ says, quote, today's order doesn't change the Department of Justice's position on the facts. DACA was implemented unilaterally after Congress declined to extend these benefits to this same group of illegal aliens. As such, it was an unlawful circumvention of Congress. They continue, the Department of Justice will vigorously defend its position and looks forward forward to vindicating its position in further litigation. So here's what this means, guys, this morning. For the moment, it allows a DACA program to remain in place while legal challenges play out, potentially alleviating some of the pressure of the March deadline while lawmakers seek a permanent solution for these dreamers. That deadline, of course, the whole point of that extraordinary meeting at the White House. This judge is Judge William Alsup, the U.S. District Judge of Northern California. He was appointed by Bill Clinton, and it's important to note this was a pre-trial injunction, so very likely this is the last we've heard of this. And, we'll see what happens as lawmakers continue negotiations coming out of that meeting yesterday.
They do indeed. All right. Griff, we thank you very much for the live report. Okay, so before this, and Griff just mentioned that meeting that the president had with lawmakers yesterday, the narrative in the mainstream media for the last 4 days has been that Donald Trump is lazy because of the Michael Wolff book. He's lazy and he's crazy. He's up in his bedroom and he's eating Kentucky Fried Chicken. So what did he do yesterday? He did something brilliant. He called in the TV cameras, and usually this is just, it's so-called a spray, where you go in and you shine the camera over that way, then you leave. He had the cameras stay, and for 55 minutes, he was a guy at the top of his game, showed exactly, he knew every detail about what's going on with immigration and DACA and Democrats and doing a deal.
And even mainstream media praising him for this. Listen to some of the comments that the president made to that group.
I'm appealing to everyone in the room to put the country before a party and to sit down and negotiate and to compromise. Having the Democrats in with us is absolutely vital, because this should be a bipartisan bill. This should be a bill of love. We've been talking about DACA for a long time. I've been hearing about it for years, long before I decided to go into this particular line of work.
Democrats are for security at the borders. There are obviously differences, however, Mr. President, on how you affect that.
When we talk about just DACA, we don't want to be back here 2 years later. You have to have security.
I'll take the heat. I don't care. I don't care. I'll take all the heat you want to give me. And I'll take the heat off both the Democrats and the Republicans. My whole life has been heat. There should be no reason for us not to get this done.
Well, a couple of things happened. Number one, I just thought overall how much better Democrats would be if Steny Hoyer was in charge. Because I found him to be very reasonable throughout. He was listening. He was the give and take. That is as close to real as I've ever seen in Washington. And I was sitting next to Marie Harf on Outnumbered, and she's saying, that's it. That's what it's like in these meetings when there's no cameras around. Sure. And at the beginning, I cannot wait to do the forensics and rebuild what went into the 55 minutes with cameras there. But it seems to me it was like Jersey Shore. In the beginning, you thought they knew they were on camera. After a while, they forgot they were on camera, and it began to become a real reality show.
Well, the reality is a brilliant bit of stagecraft, and that is the president's team put a Democrat on each side. There you got Durbin on one side, you got Hoyer on the other. It looks like, and the dynamic is, look, this is a president that got the Democrats to the table, and here are two of the top Democrats right there.
But saying that he wanted a clean bill, the Senator Feinstein says, I have a clean bill. Let's do the border security later. The president's like, all right. And then quickly Kevin McCarthy jumped in and goes, no, we're not doing that. If we're going to do DACA, we have to do border security. There was also a request from the Democrats. Do you really need $18 billion to build a wall? He goes, no, I'll take some of it. So it was a real give and take, and I think that's what people wanted when they hired Donald Trump.
More negotiating. He said it was a bill of love. I thought
that is Jeb Bush line that he ridiculed. So a lot of people on the right didn't love that. All right,
so this is what the bill looks like. These are their goals, at least. Phase 1 would be border security, end the chain migration, cancel the visa lottery program, and DACA.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Then phase 2 would be comprehensive immigration reform.
But within DACA, there's other issues. Do you bring the parents? And by the way, what is the pathway to citizenship? They don't instantly become citizens. Maybe they're here, they're allowed to stay, and then after a certain amount of time, there's incremental things that have to happen.
Do they bring the parents? DACA, the kids are already here.
Right, parents but there's so many you can't legalize the parents. Because just because the kids got brought here at a young age, it doesn't mean the parents who came here illegally
should get legalized
amnesty.
Too.
Why should they jump ahead?
He talked about the visa lottery program, and he said that all these other countries, they're putting their names in the hopper. They're not giving you their best names. Common sense means that they're not giving you their best names. They're giving you people that they don't want.
Sure. And ultimately, and when Dianne Feinstein from over in the corner asked about a clean deal, the president said, well, I'd be open for that, as Brian said a moment ago. And the White House later clarified, when he talks about a clean deal, that means there's going to be some border security in it. In other words, if DACA is going to happen, so is the wall. Listen.
Any agreement without the wall? No, there wouldn't be. You need it. I'd love not to build the wall, but you need the wall. If you don't have the wall, you cannot have security. You just can't have it. It doesn't work.
It's just so interesting because that was the part 2 that aired first on our channel, and everyone said, he said, you have enough now for the next couple of years. I thought, what is he talking about? Then they aired part 1, which was 55 minutes. Then I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Well, he was talking about building the wall because he said drugs are coming over at a record pace, and we have to keep our country safe. He makes a good point. I don't want to build this wall. I don't want to spend this kind of money on this, but we have to, he said.
Absolutely. In the meantime, Rush Limbaugh, having the benefit of being on in the afternoon from noon to 3, he watched what the president was doing and realized that what the president and the White House image makers and message makers were doing was showing that this president, despite what you read in the Michael Wolff book, which he even said he didn't talk to anybody in the cabinet, this was the narrative against that. Look, this president is actually in charge and knows what he's doing. Watch.
You heard about all during the campaign, Trump being the art of the deal negotiator, this brilliant run rings around him negotiator. I think I'm just looking at Trump's body language here as he's conducting this meeting. Kind of sitting here with his arms crossed and folded across his chest, and he's got a serious look on his face as he's listening to what these Democrats have to say. But he's forcing them on the record what they want in front of the media. All the cable networks have just spent an hour televising Trump in total control of a meeting, with the Democrats in the meeting showing total deference and respect to Trump.
Exactly. And that was the key. We just want to see, I mean, there was total respect. There wasn't a lot of posturing. I didn't get any political slogans. I didn't hear anyone give a speech like we see on all these hearings where they come out, they don't even ask a question. They just give speeches to the person. You wonder what the person's even doing there. Among the critics, though, was Tucker Carlson. He opened up a show last night. He blasted the president. He said he showed too much give when it came to the wall and other areas.
How's that too much give? He said, you're not getting DACA. We're building the wall.
At one point, he told Senator Feinstein, okay, we would do DACA alone.
Okay.
And there were different areas in which he
I'm curious to find out if he's going to start doing this more often, allowing cameras into the meetings to show that they are working together. Because we saw the rallies were so successful for him, so he continued to have the rallies. He's still doing the rallies because he always gets his ratings go up after that. So I'm curious to find out if that happens here.
It's also going to be hard for the Democrats who were in that room to then go out today or in the future and say, you know, the president's crazy, because they legitimized him yesterday by sitting at the table dealing with him. You don't deal with the crazy person, you deal with the president, which is what the image was.
25 members, 16 senators, 9 representatives, 15 Republicans, and 10 Democrats.
And one person with the headlines right now.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How are you? Good morning to you. Let's begin with a Fox News alert because we are following this story right now. The frantic hunt for survivors in Southern California intensifying after mudslides kill at least 13 people and wipe away homes. The same area is recovering from devastating wildfires, now hit with staggering amounts of rain and now mud. Take a look at this heroic rescue. A U.S. Coast Guard helicopter crew pulling a family of 5, including a newborn baby, a 3-year-old, and 2 dogs to safety. President Trump's attorney coming out swinging, filing defamation lawsuits over the fake dossier that helped kickstart the FBI Russian probe. Michael Cohen slapping lawsuits against the firm behind the report, Fusion GPS, and BuzzFeed for publishing it. It comes just hours after Senate Judiciary Committee ranking member Dianne Feinstein released bombshell testimony from the firm's co-founder, Glenn Simpson, claiming some of the information in the report came from a Trump campaign insider. Steve Bannon out at Breitbart News. President Trump's former chief strategist returned to the website over the summer as executive chairman after being ousted by the White House. The parting of ways comes after Bannon's controversial statements about the president and his family were published in the newly released book Fire and Fury. Let's look at your headlines, and I don't think many people were surprised when this news came out.
I think he's also off XM Sirius as well now.
Yeah.
All right, Jeanine, thank you very much.
Coming up, it was the thrill of a lifetime. College ROTC cadets escorting the president at the college football championship game. 3 of those proud Americans are going to join us live straight ahead.
Terrific. And this teacher questioned her superintendent's pay raise, and then she got dragged out in handcuffs.
What? Can you explain? Are you kidding me?
Stop resisting.
I am not. You just pushed me to the floor.
Come together and reach an agreement.
I hope that this meeting can be the beginning of building trust between our parties.
What about a clean DACA bill now, and with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform procedure?
We're going to come up with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
Hey, now quickly, Kevin McCarthy jumped in and says, no, same time. President Trump giving the world a rare glimpse of what compromise looks like, or at least a brainstorming session, allowing the media's cameras full access to a bipartisan meeting on immigration for 55 minutes. Here to react, Great America PAC co-chair Eric Beach. Eric, how important is this for the president at this point in his presidency to do something like this?
I think the president realizes the historic relevance of what happened yesterday. And even furthermore, he doesn't get enough credit for how he diagnosed the American electorate when it built, centered around illegal immigration and building the wall. He was the only one that diagnosed that, not just in the primary, but the general election. So he looked big. Everybody else looked small yesterday. And I do think there's a pushback here against the narrative that says, the president's not in control of these negotiations. He was in his element yesterday, and I was pleased to see it.
And he knew everything. But he doesn't have the history of negotiations in the past. For Republicans, they get concerned because Democrats always promise to do something down the line. They never do. Senator Feinstein actually threw that out there, said, hey, why don't we do DACA now and do comprehensive later? And then quickly, Kevin McCarthy and Tom Cotton jumped in and says, no. Do it at the same time. You guys never do it later.
And they're absolutely right. But so is the president. And he understands the art of the deal. And he understands that he's going to allow the Democrats, to apply any kind of rhetoric that they want during the meeting. But I was also very happy to see his tweet yesterday. It said, no wall, no DACA. And he was very clear about that. He's been very clear about that. He's the only candidate that was. And as president, this president does what he says he's going to do.
Right. So here is some of the reaction from the other networks about what they saw, which was unexpected and unprecedented. Watch.
I can't think of an example of something I've seen like that in covering Washington.
This is not the Steve Bannon version of Donald Trump.
And I got to give the president of the United States a lot of credit. He allowed the TV cameras in there for this really remarkable meeting.
After Wolf Blitzer gave the president credit, Jim Acosta passed out. So he just could not, and no one could revive him. So in the big picture, I fear this, that as reasonable as Democrats and Republicans look yesterday, there's going to be pressure for Democrats never to allow that to happen again, because it looked as if there was something getting done. Do you worry about that too?
I do. I mean, they look like contestants on The Apprentice, and he looked in complete control. And again, you have to judge him by his results. And in the first year of his presidency, it was all about results. That meeting yesterday, he came out of it in a position of strength.
Right. And it wasn't just a couple of lines. He said, look, we're going to do this in 2 phases. It's just not going to be today. Maybe we'll do this with border wall and come back and do it again. And he's uniquely qualified to do it. The other thing is, I don't think Democrats look bad either. I thought they brought up some good points. They seem very reasonable. It seemed like our life away from politics. Eric Beach, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, still ahead. A new front in our fight against the Taliban, the first of its kind mission just launched by the Marines. And it was the thrill of a lifetime. College ROTC cadets escorting President Trump at the College Football Championship. 3 of those proud Americans join us live next.
We have some quick headlines for you. The U.S. agreeing to sell millions of dollars worth of anti-ballistic missiles to Japan as threats from North Korea are intensifying. Equipment included in the $133 million deal is capable of intercepting threats from the north. The deal follows a year of ramped-up North Korean missile launches, some of them over Japanese territory. And the United States Marines are training Afghans to combat terrorists with drones. Afghan troops using Boeing Scan Eagles is what they're called, to identify the targets, which are then destroyed in the airstrikes. According to a Marine captain, this air support is causing the Taliban to actually lose ground. Steve?
Thanks, Ainsley. ROTC cadets getting the thrill of a lifetime. Looky here, escorting President Trump onto the field to sing the national anthem ahead of the Monday night National College Championship game. Joining us right now, 3 of those University of Georgia ROTC cadets who marched onto the field with President Trump. We've got Cadet Alyssa Rufa, Cadet TJ Maddie, and Cadet Mitch Walton. They all joined us from Atlanta. Good morning, cadets.
Good morning, sir.
All right, it's great to have you. So, Cadet Rufa, tell us what it was like when you were standing on the sidelines and just right over there is the President of the United States and you're about to go out on the field with him.
It was just surreal. I mean, I'm a senior at UGA, and this is my last game, so I couldn't have imagined a better end to my college football season at UGA. So it was just no words for it.
Okay, and Cadet Maddie, as we're looking at you walking out on the field with the President, and then you all stop for the national anthem, what were you feeling?
Just immense pride. I mean, you know, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And to be able to stand at salute 2 people over from the President of the United States for the national anthem, you can't describe it.
Sure. And Cadet Walton, you planned a career in the military. To be that close to the Commander-in-Chief must have been the thrill of a lifetime.
Yes, sir. Just like Cadet Maddie and Cadet Rufus said, it was an amazing thrill and something I never imagined would ever happen.
No kidding. Now, Cadet Rufa, I understand that the involvement with the cadets was going to end with the ceremony, but after you were done, what did the President tell all the cadets?
When we were walking out to go to our original seats, because we had already had tickets,
right.
He told us, you know, y'all should come up and hang out with us in the suites that we have. And so we were able to watch the whole game from the suites, and it was really awesome.
And Cadet Maddie, I would imagine you had an opportunity, you and the other cadets, to chat with the President and be up close and personal with him. What don't people know about Donald Trump, the President of the United States, when he's, you know, not at the lectern, not at the podium, not at the microphones?
I mean, I didn't get to talk to him too much, but, you know, he was asking a lot of questions just, you know, about what we wanted to do and stuff like that. Seemed real interested in the football game, which is, I guess you don't think about a president like in sports, but it's, you know, it seems like such a normal thing, but it just seemed like a normal guy.
Yeah. All right. And Cadet Walton, apologies, your team did not win the national championship, but nonetheless, what a night.
Yes, sir. And the Bulldogs played a great season, and they made everybody on campus very proud.
Yeah, indeed. Cadet Rufa, let me ask you about this. You know, I'm sure you've been keeping up while you've been studying there at the University of Georgia about the national anthem protests in the NFL. Did you think about that at all that night? Because, of course, there's so much going on, and yet here's a president who felt so strongly about the national anthem. He talked about it earlier in the day in Nashville at the American Farm Bureau convention, and then he stood with you at the 40-yard line to salute our nation and our flag.
Honestly, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just, you know, in amazement about all the dog fans around us and being next to the president, and the Zach Brown band was right in front of us singing the national anthem, so it didn't even come across my mind. I was just trying to remember the words in my head.
Yeah, okay. Before you go, Cadet Rufa, what do you want to do in your career?
I want to be a veterinarian.
Okay, very good. Cadet Maddie?
I'll be commissioning active duty as a field artillery officer in May.
All right, very good. And Cadet Walton?
And in 2 years, I hope to commission as an armor officer.
Well, thank you all for joining us, and it is our great pleasure to host you here on Fox and Friends, talking about the game you will never forget. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a good day. That was great. All right, coming up on this Wednesday, she was convicted of leaking top-secret government documents, and now Chelsea Manning just took another shot at the people defending our country. Wait until you hear this. And what is happening on our college campuses, from violent protests to therapy llamas? What's next? Well, we got a panel of professors and college students here to discuss that, and they're next. Good morning to you. But first, happy birthday to Rod Stewart. He is 73. Forever young.
When you think of colleges these days, you think of protests, you think of snowflakes and safe spaces. So how do we fix all of this? Let's ask our education panel. We have a wonderful panel of individuals. Thank you all for being with us. Okay, I'll start with you, Charlton, because I was reading what you were talking to the producers earlier about, and it struck me because you worked for President Trump's campaign. You are the college Republican president on your school, at your school, which is Wagner College, and you say that you've been alienated by professors. It's hard to get good grades. Tell me more about that.
Oh, yeah, there's been alienation all over campus, whether it's just with professors or fellow students, and it's been difficult to maintain good grades, be able to be the single conservative voice in a classroom, and it's been difficult, and it's you just have to keep strong to your values and to your core beliefs and make sure you're advocating for what you believe in.
Okay, we have Paul Anthony Questel in the front row, a student, a junior at Manhattanville College, and part of campusreform.com. You're a correspondent. So the University of South Florida, they brought in these therapy llamas. We remember this story. We did it about 2 weeks ago during final exams to just calm the students. And then after the election, we heard about coloring books and Play-Dohs and therapy dogs being brought in. Your school has offered counseling, or did offer counseling when President Trump was elected, right?
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
I think it was really terrible. It's their health office is offering counseling to students that were having difficulty coping with the presidency of Donald Trump, and I know for a fact that that service would not be offered if the election results were different. We had a President Hillary Clinton.
So if it were Hillary Clinton that won, they wouldn't be doing that?
Not at all.
Okay, Wendy, I'll go to you. Professor Wendy Osefo, a regular guest on our show. Good to see you again, Wendy. Professor at George Washington and a liberal commentator. And you're saying that you're feeling backlash for your liberal views.
Yeah, I feel backlash for my liberal views because I feel as though when you work at a campus, you have to understand that everyone has different views, right? But sometimes when you're a professor and you're outspoken, students wonder why you're able to say certain things. And I think it cuts both ways, whether you're a progressive or whether you're a conservative. And it's just something that we have to know that campuses are for us to ignite conversation. And whatever your view is, you should not be stymied by it.
All right, we have Professor Joseph Borelli in the back. He's a New York City councilman and adjunct policy professor at CUNY, which is City University of New York. Now, one of your colleagues was actually fired at your school for saying that they were advocating for dead cops. You also have a professor at NYU who is hoping for white genocide and continues to get promoted. What are your thoughts about these professors saying these outlandish things?
Well, I respectfully disagree with what Wendy is saying. We do see a lot of these examples throughout the country, not just here in New York, and we always see them in the vein of them being anti-conservative or anti-Trump. No one incident speaks for a systemic problem, but when you have a pattern and it's almost never reversed in the opposite direction, I think it is something system-wide, and it is a problem. And I think this is a real problem for academia. Academic writing should be free. Professors should be free to write whatever they want. But for the first time, I think, in history, we're seeing this liberal bias sort of descend into every facet of campus life.
All right,
I'm sorry, I have to disagree with that. And for you to sit here and say that it only cuts both ways, I'm sitting right beside you and actually telling you it goes the other way. If you look at the 1980s with apartheid, if you look at the 1960s with civil rights, for you to again sit here and say it only goes to conservatives, that means you don't know your history. Historically, it has also gone to liberals. So it does cut both ways.
Emily, do you agree with that? Does it go both ways?
Not on my campus.
Okay, Emily goes to Harvard. Emily's a student there, vice president of college Republicans and campusreform.org correspondent as well.
I think on my campus, what we've seen is that the problem is that liberal bias extends both from the university administrators and the professors and the students. And it's a multifaceted problem that we're seeing on our campuses, because not only do professors often use their platforms as teachers to profess their own views instead of teaching students how to think about issues. They're instead teaching students what to think.
Harvard, such a great education. Congratulations on getting accepted there. But we reported this week the fraternities and sororities, they are single-gendered now. They have to be single-gendered. Betsy DeVos, there were protests when she went to speak because she represents President Trump. Placemats, you said, when people went home for Thanksgiving to talk about how to discuss liberal views with your family?
Yeah, I think that's just another example of the prevalent liberal bias on Harvard's campus. And the placemats are just one incredible example of how that happens. My freshman year, right before I headed home for the holidays, my dining hall became inundated with placemats telling students how to talk to their backward families at home about modern issues. This is just another example of how the university is putting their views into students' minds. This was the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion that put out these placemats, and I don't think they were being inclusive at all of other students' viewpoints.
All right, show of hands. Can this be fixed? Raise your hands if you think it can be. Okay, we're going to have you back toward the end of the show, or later in, I think in the last hour, and we're going to talk to you about how to fix the problem, okay? Thanks for being with us. Y'all are wonderful. All right, we're going to hand it over to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning to you at home. Chelsea Manning blasting our men and women in blue on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. The American trader tweeting this photo and writing, quote, blank the police, hashtag disarm the police, hashtag we got this, and hashtag Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Manning spent 7 years in military prison for leaking classified documents to WikiLeaks. President Obama commuted her sentence before leaving office. A veterans memorial destroyed by criminals will take hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. The tribute to the people defending our country knocked off the mounts at the Walk of Heroes Memorial Park in Georgia last month. 3 suspects are under arrest. 1 is still on the run. The memorial's board members say the damage is so extensive it will likely take months and at least $200,000 to fix. This is insane. A teacher is handcuffed and arrested for questioning her boss's new contract. Watch.
What are you doing? Don't. Can you explain? Are you kidding me?
Stop resisting.
I am not. You just pushed me to the floor.
This all happening at a Louisiana school board meeting after she asked why the superintendent was getting a $30,000 raise when teachers weren't getting one at all.
Is it against policy to stand? Sir, do not.
She won't face charges. There are reports it was all a setup to get rid of the superintendent. Let's look at your headlines. Steve, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jillian. Coming up on this Wednesday, former Sheriff Joe Arpaio is getting back in the saddle, and it looks like he's running for Senate down in Arizona. He's going to join us live for his first TV appearance since the announcement in the next hour.
Yeah, I don't think Senator Jeff Flake is thrilled with that, but plus journalists in countries like Russia, China, and Turkey are killed or jailed. But one group says President Trump is the biggest oppressor of the press in the world. Really? Question mark. Really? Question mark again.
We can get higher. There's levels to your love, and I keep on climbing up.
All right, here you go. Time for your sports headlines. NBC will show NFL players kneeling for the national anthem at the Super Bowl if they kneel at the Super Bowl. The game's executive producer says the protests are a big story, and if any player kneels, it will be broadcast. Anthem protests widely believed to be the reason for a drop in TV ratings, or a lot of it. They're down significantly. And Alabama football coach Nick Saban might want back in the NFL after his 6th national title in the college game. Former Arizona Cardinals coach Bruce Arians thinks it will be with the New York Giants.
It would not surprise me. You know, and there's a job he covets. It just happens to be open.
Why the New York Giants?
Because they're the New York Giants.
Saban had limited success coaching the Dolphins in 2005 and 2006. Then he said, you know what, I don't like this anymore. The New York Post reports he has no interest in the Giants gig. And that's what he looked like then.
These are some of leaders with the worst reputation of cracking down on the press ever. Russian President Vladimir Putin, China's president, Egypt's president, Turkey's President Erdogan.
That's right.
Just to name a few.
So why is an organization called the Committee to Protect Journalists naming President Trump the world's top oppressor of press freedom?
Katie Freitas is the managing editor of Olympic Media, and she joins us now with more. What an insult this is, and illogical, and it shows there's no legitimate criteria here, only a political agenda.
Well, you're right. It's absolutely partisan, and it's ridiculous to anyone with even a shred of common sense. First off, CPJ did this in response to President Trump's fake news media awards. While I think those are silly, it's absolutely partisan that they're doing this. They're not doing this on their own merit. And of course, you look at, there are journalists that are disappearing, being murdered, being imprisoned all over the world for trying to tell the truth about the wrongs that their governments do. And Trump is mean to people on Twitter, trying to say that makes him worse than people in Turkey or Putin in Russia or Myanmar, Syria, anywhere else, is flat out insulting to the journalists all over the world who risk their lives to reveal actual truth.
Okay, so he's the top oppressor, and yet you look, we've got a great, he is the top oppressor in the world. In Mexico, 6 journalists were murdered. In Russia, 2 were murdered. In the Philippines, 2 were murdered. And yet Donald Trump, not only the top oppressor, he's also the most thin-skinned, according to this outfit.
Well, again, clearly that's wrong. Like, look, it is true that Trump does have a thin skin. You can see it in how he behaves on Twitter with the media. But again, he cannot be the worst because he's not killing anyone. And there are presidents that are murdering journalists. I don't understand why they think that this was going to give them any good PR. It's absolutely a farce on its face. It's ridiculous. And on top of that, I mean, if you look at the actual article that CPJ put up as to why they believe this, their arguments are entirely flimsy. They essentially say, oh, because Trump and a bunch of other Western leaders don't do enough, then somehow it's their fault that journalists are being murdered in the world. It's flimsy arguments that don't hold water.
Well, you know what, Katie? You said you didn't think they would, about the bad PR, the good PR. They're going to get good PR from reporters in this country who don't like Donald Trump.
And those reporters are doing a disservice to their job, their industry, their country, and other journalists, again, in the world that are fighting for real truth. If they don't step back and look at this and say, you know what? This is not okay. It is a disservice to our industry, and you should absolutely, CPJ should really be ashamed of themselves for trying to do this tit for tat with the president to try to get some PR.
As a journalist, Katie, I'm sitting here thinking we are so fortunate to live in this great country and be able to speak our minds. I can't believe these journalists, they get killed by the president if they don't like the narrative of the journalist. I mean, that's insane.
It is absolutely insane. And look, Trump gives his ire and his praise on Twitter very freely. Again, freely. We have the First Amendment. This is a country that protects free speech. And people need to remember that. Trump is not taking that away. And there are many countries in the world that don't have those privileges.
He has the right and the freedom to tweet if he wants.
Let's do a test. If you're in Iran, China, watching us right now, do a critical editorial on your government and let us know how that goes. Right? Let's see even if it gets in the paper or published.
They probably wouldn't even be able to watch this program because of the censorship there.
Exactly.
I know they would censor Ainsley, but not Steve or I.
Katie, thank you very much for joining us live from DC.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
All right. Meanwhile, the left, political left, is dreaming of Oprah Winfrey running for president next time in 2020. So does President Trump think she's a threat? We've got the answer.
And the story is incredible. A school asked for 50 volunteers at a Breakfast with Dads event because some kids didn't have fathers. 600 showed up, and the event's organizer and one of those volunteers, they're going to join us live next. Isn't that sweet?
This is what happens when we do, as men, when we do what we're supposed to do. Once again, look at this turnout.
An incredible outpouring of love and support. Organizers for a Breakfast with Dads event at a Dallas middle school asking for 50 volunteers to step in for absentee dads. And guess what? 600 men showed up.
Unbelievable. Joining us right now is the event organizer, Reverend Donald Parrish Jr., and one of the guys, a mentor by the name of Jamil Tucker. Guys, thanks for joining us today from Dallas.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, Reverend, tell us about what you had in mind for this event as you put out this plea to have some guys show up to mentor these young men.
Okay, great. Let me first say that this was definitely a joint effort. The school's principal, Tracy Washington, the school liaison, Miss Ellen Favors, had an idea to have a breakfast with dads instead of a donuts with dad. That's kind of popular. They thought of, hey, we do a full breakfast, we'll get more guys. And so we were there just having our regular community meeting, and they mentioned, hey, Reverend Parrish, you know, don't forget we got this event coming up. And then my right hand woman, I was going to say my right hand man, my right hand woman, Miss Christina Dove, for a big thought, immediately whipped out her phone, and I said, okay, you know what, that's great. Let's put it on social media. She posted, I copied her post, and we just put it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and some other social media, and it spread like wildfire.
Boom,
I mean, it spread like wildfire. It was actually 800 that responded.
That's
600
amazing.
showed up.
So, Donald, what was your reaction and what was your involvement?
Jamil?
What?
Jamil.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Jamil.
Okay. I was expecting, right at 50. I got there a little late, so parking was crazy by the time I got there, and that's when I knew that it was way more than 50. So I was actually on stage leading with the tie-tying instructions. And it was a phenomenal experience.
It was amazing. Nobody believed me that the numbers that we were reporting. So I had to call in a favor to our school board trustee, Ms. Bernadette Nuttall, and to help make sure we had enough people to cover the food and everything. But no one believed me that the outcry was so great.
So Donald, a lot of people sitting at home and go, I'm from a single-parent family. What's the big deal? Why is it important for a male figure in these kids' lives? Why was this more than just symbolism at your event?
Okay, great. Now, I'm a Baptist preacher, and it's Wednesday, so you got to be careful asking me questions like that. I'll get on my pulpit. But honestly, I believe that what is ailing America, no matter what race, no matter what color, no matter income, is men not being involved in the raising of our young people. And stats show us that you look at the incarceration rate, 80% come from single-parent family homes. We have to do something about that. And so this is step one in us doing something about that. And you cannot discount the power that a man has in a neighborhood, in a home, in a school, in a church, in a civic organization. We just need men just to simply step up and to be men.
Men like Jamil. Jamil, why did you say, yep, I'm going to show up? It wasn't just for the breakfast, obviously, although I'm sure it was delicious.
Well, yeah, actually, I come from a single-parent home. So I know how it felt to have, events where your father wasn't there. But then on the flip side, my Uncle Lonnie was very instrumental. So I know how it felt to have someone there, although your dad wasn't there. So I just had to be there, whether it was, leading, tying the tie, or just being there. I knew I had to do it.
I know you teach a lot of kids how to tie a tie. That's your business. And now you're doing more. And hopefully this is just the first step, and there's many more steps to come. Jamil and Donald, thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for what you're doing in the lives of those precious children.
Thank you for having us.
God bless you both. Thank you.
All right, coming up, Sheriff Joe Arpaio is going to join us in the next half hour. It's his first interview since announcing his run for Senate, plus Senator David Perdue.